Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Marsha Van Weinsberg, and I am here on my brand new podcast called Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. And it is a podcast highlighting people and interviewing people to see where in their life they owned their choices to create a shift or a change in their life. And I really want to highlight everyday people who are out there making a difference in the world. So this is our very first podcast. So have patience with us as we're all going through this and learning. And today I am thrilled to have Julie Laidlaw with us. And Julie is somebody that we connected with on Facebook probably about a year ago. And when we did so, we were in a couple of different personal development groups together and realized that Julie was only an hour away from me in location. Then we actually connected and met, and we've connected and stayed in contact since then. So when I put the information out there to see who would be interested in being interviewed for this podcast, Julie put her hand up first, and I said, okay, you're it. So this is where we are starting. So Julie is a busy mom of two young girls. She's a personal trainer, and she is a personal development coach, and she is graduating from yoga teacher training in June. Loves to travel, loves nature, loves her kids, and loves to put herself out there. So she's got a great story that I am looking forward to diving into today. So thank you, Julie, for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is so exciting. And I did not realize that I was the first one. So woohoo.
I have a list of names. This is the first one we were able to connect with. So it was perfect. So I mean, it's all perfect anyways, right?
Yeah.
So we're just going to start with just a little bit of introduction. Tell me just, whatever you want to tell me about yourself that brings you to this point in time.
I think it's just been like in the last year that I've started to want to share my story. Mm-hmm. So I had been working as a personal trainer for the last 6 years, and I had gone through some struggles previously with alcoholism, and then later on with an eating disorder. And so being in fitness has I was putting myself out there as a personal trainer. And then because of some of the struggles I was going through, I felt like I was being a bit of a fraud. So I stepped back from that for a little bit, and I went back to work in an office, and I realized that that was not for me at all. Mm-hmm. And that I wanted to do fitness, but I thought, how can I do this but be my authentic self? And so I decided, if I'm going to do this, the only way to do it is to just be myself and speak my truth and tell people what I had been through. So I think I wrote my first blog a year ago, and I was so terrified to put it out there. And but it was a really freeing and amazing experience to do that. And the support was amazing. And I think just by doing that, I attracted the people into my life that I want to have in my life. So maybe not everyone agrees with my choices at the time, but that doesn't matter. So that's been really cool. It's been, every time I put myself out there, I get those nerves, but I always feel good about it after, and it gets a little bit easier every time. So
that's amazing. And I love that, because you know that I am a strong believer in that when we share our stories, that the world becomes a little bit more of a open space. We realize that we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones who struggle. We're not the only ones who have challenges, even though we feel alone. And I do believe we feel alone for the most part because we don't talk. We don't share. And we create this visual of what, everyone's life is perfect and no one else is going to understand. And it's just not true. It's really not true at all. Yeah. So I remember reading your blog, and I remember just sitting there going, okay, that took guts, and I loved it. Like, I absolutely loved it. And that is something that every time I release something about myself, it becomes a extremely nauseous moment where I think, yes, do I really want to do this? And do I really want to do this? And what are people going to say? What are people going to think? And every single time I've done it, it has resulted in connecting with incredible people, helping someone else, and getting a message from someone saying, oh my gosh, that was my life, and you just shared that. So It has been worth it every single time. So
Absolutely.
you've had a number then of different, what I would call turning points in your life, right? That has
Yes.
brought you to this point.
Yes,
Why don't you
for
share one of
sure.
them? Share one of them with us.
I would say that the biggest turning point for me was actually just over 8 years ago that I decided to get sober.
Mm-hmm.
I had been through a lot of things in my life, and I grew up with some negative messages that were in my head from my childhood, and that became my default. Those messages became what I told myself about not being worthy and not being lovable and not being enough. And so for many years, I used alcohol to numb that pain. When I found that, I was like, oh, this is great. This is my solution. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be shy anymore. I can be the life of the party. I can numb my pain. And it's like, it's the same with anything. It can be drinking, it can be eating, it can be sex, it can be being addicted to being online or whatever. It's like a void that's inside,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking for everything external to fill that void. So same with alcoholism, same with my eating disorder. I thought, like, if I do a fitness competition and I obsess over exercise and what I eat, and if I have this perfect body, then I can love myself. So I was always looking for something external, something external. Now I'm getting way off track already, but
It's
I
okay.
would say, yeah, like the turning point would be deciding to get sober, because I had just hit such a bottom, and I thought, like, I'm either gonna die or I'm gonna have to change my life.
I I love how honest you're being and how real you're being and the points that you're going to. And I think that that is, you must have had some moments there where it was like a moment of clarity, the moment of choice, the moment where you decided that that's where I'm going and that's what I'm doing. And there's just no turning back this time. This is no,
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing with my life, and you become that clear in it. But I love how you talked about that we are always filling this, it's like we're filling this void and we're looking external to do it.
yeah,
And all of those things never fill the void. They
no,
never fill the void. When we shoot for perfection, when we shoot for those things, nothing fills it.
no,
Absolutely nothing fills it. And it only comes from us. And that's where you must have found that, you know, your personal growth and personal development and your
yeah.
dedication to that, how much of a difference that has made in your life.
Yeah, it's for sure. And I think at the time I didn't even realize what I was gonna have to look at to get there. I just knew that I couldn't continue on drinking. I knew that it was destroying my life, but I had no idea the things that I was gonna have to do, like the things that I was gonna have to look at and peel back the layers and be completely honest with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was so much easier, like it was easy back then to blame outside people, outside issues, like the world was being done to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so after I decided to get sober, I realized a few months in, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to look at all this stuff, which was scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so glad that I did it, because I had to face all my fears. And I still do, and I face those resentments and heal those relationships. And that I had to take full responsibility for my life. Like, I had to take full responsibility to, like, where my life had gotten to at that point. And that was the only way that it was going to change, was for me to realize that I'm the one who gets to decide how the story is going to end. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I think that that is a great way to say it, in the fact that most people don't realize that they have to own where they're at. It's not that we have to own where we're at so that we berate ourselves and we're negative with ourselves and
Mm,
it's not about, you know, punishing yourself for all the mistakes that you've made at all. But there's a huge power in owning your choices and owning where you're at in life, because when you do that, you realize that you have the power to choose something different.
yes.
And I think that has been one of my biggest ahas over the years, which seems so silly and simple, but it's so true. When you
Yeah.
own it and you accept it, you realize you actually have the power to make a different choice.
Yeah. And
And
I really like what you said too about you can do it without being without being hard on yourself or
Mhm.
blaming, because it's easy sometimes to look at it and like I've beat myself up over stuff, But now I try to, and I still have those moments, like I'm human,
Of course.
but now I try to practice more self-compassion. Like just, you know, looking at myself lovingly like I would with a friend. And then same for other people, like people who maybe have hurt me, I can now look at them from a more compassionate point of view as well.
Yeah,
So,
that definitely takes work. And that's when I really think that you can start to realize that, you know what, I have grown and I have made changes, because I was the person that would always react in a way that I'm not proud of, but short fuse, redhead, call it whatever you want. But if I felt I was backed into a corner, I would come out flying. That was just my nature. And now I've learned in many ways that less is more. And I don't need to take that on, and I don't need to convince the world of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. The reasons are good for me, and it makes a difference, and that's all that matters. So it's really just owning that. So in doing that, and just so that our listeners can relate in a sense, there must have been times where you felt alone, and you felt that, my support system, maybe it had to grow, change, or whatever that was. Talk to us about some of those times where you felt like, oh, I just feel like I'm going at this world alone.
Oh, absolutely. Well, speaking to my drinking, I definitely felt alone during that time. And the hardest thing to do when I was feeling that low was to reach out, and like there's no way that I could have done that without support. So I had to reach out, and I had a friend that was in recovery, and I had known she was in recovery, and I finally did call her. And from there, I met a group of people in a similar situation, and hearing their stories, I would hear my story over and over again. And so for me, it's really easy to isolate. Like I consider myself an introvert. I still do. And so isolating seemed like the easier route. So sometimes picking up that phone feels like 1,000 pounds to pick it up when I really needed to. But I definitely had to find support in that environment, which I did. And even to this day, like I have a lot of support through just like-minded people, through yourself and through connecting and stuff like that. Same with going through my eating issues and my my obsessing with fitness and things like that. It wasn't until that I actually reached out and started talking to people that I realized that I wasn't alone. And it's really important to have that connection, for sure.
Incredibly important.
Yeah.
Incredibly. I would also add too, I found that in my process going through some of the challenges that we've gone through in our family, it wasn't until I reached out, was vulnerable, decided to go to that place, and connected with complete strangers sometimes, that I realized that we weren't alone. Like we were just not even close to being alone. So I think that it's very important to be able to show that vulnerability and be able to reach out to other people. So I commend you on that. And I know that was definitely a big part of your journey.
For sure.
Completely.
Yeah.
How do you see things differently, and how did this affect your life, for example? How much, we talked about your growth and what you had to do. Where is your life now in comparison, and how do you see things differently?
I definitely, I see things differently on so many levels, like just knowing that I have the power to make the choices to create my life, whereas before, like, I thought everything was happening to me, like I said before. And my life has changed big time. Like I would never have been able to be the mom that I am today if I hadn't made these changes. I wouldn't have built this career that I've built, which kind of started out as like I wanted to be a personal trainer, and now it's developed into more like wanting to help people through sharing my story about my recovery, about my eating disorder, and about like personal development coaching. And it's kind of like with this yoga, which has like been part of my spiritual path, which I'm not a religious person, but I'm definitely a spiritual person. And I believe like what I've learned is like what I put out there is what I'm attracting into my world. So I really had to learn to change my thoughts. Like I think you and I were talking about this earlier before we were recording about, and in the beginning I had to change my thoughts 100 times a day. And the more I was able to do that, the more natural it became. It's like changing those neural pathways, right? Like things are so deeply ingrained, but we have the power to change those thoughts. And by changing how we think and how we feel about ourselves, that's changed my life drastically. And it's like I surround myself with totally different people that I would have surrounded myself with 8 years ago. And it's been really, just knowing, like you said, like we're not alone, and knowing that we have the power to create an amazing life. Like when I got sober, I decided that like I wasn't going to get sober to live a mediocre life, because if I'm going to lead a mediocre life, I might as well be drinking, right? So pretty much from the beginning, I was like, I am going to make my life amazing. Like I'm not stopping at just like putting down the drink and whatever. No, like I was like, okay, I got to create something amazing out of this.
Okay, that there, absolutely love that. But that was a decision. You were at a point in life where you made a decision that I'm not just going to coast through this anymore. Like I'm here to do something more than coast. And I can completely relate and understand that I had to get to a point where I was like, I'm done hiding. I'm done living like this. This is not what I was here to do.
Yeah.
And, I don't care if people agree or don't agree. I'm here to do something bigger. And essentially, it's not about me anymore. It's just not. It's not. It's about who else it can impact or affect. And in sharing your stories you're doing now, that's essentially what happens, is that you open up the door for so many other people.
Yeah, it is. The sharing is it is so important, because I think if that helps other people not feel alone. And you had said something at the beginning about sometimes we think like other people's lives are perfect and we're not, and you know, we compare ourselves. And I love that quote that says, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides.
It's awesome.
Because it's easy to make it look good on social media or whatever. And I find and it's just not the truth, right? Like everybody has struggles, and the more we share about them, the more we realize that we're not alone. And so I think it's important. Like I love surrounding myself with the people who are willing to be vulnerable and share their story and be honest. And those are the people who inspire me. The people who inspire me are the ones who've been through struggles and gained strength from it, rather than, you know, like it's not perfect all the time.
No, exactly. And I think that is awesome. I think that is awesome. And I love that you said like life is happening for me and not to me. And that took me a very long time to, I used to get so offended when people said that.
Yeah.
And I finally had to realize it was my decision, what I did with it. And so it does happen for us. And I believe that our adversities happen for us specifically because they're ways to nudge and help us bring out our best so that we can do more with what we have. And I realize that comment might offend some people because we don't ask for things to go wrong, but I mean, it's life. It does happen to everyone.
Yeah.
So you get to a point where, you know, I really do refer to that we tend to find, we get to a space where we find our gifts in our adversities. And gifts were a word that I really thought about for a long time and sat on for a long time. And gifts were the one way that I could change my mindset and my thinking. And again, instead of life happening to me, it was happening for me. And there were gifts in our adversities that we could look at so that, you know, it helped me step into being more and doing more with my story. And so I like to refer to our adversities and that we have our gifts. And the one thing I'm going to say with that is that how I refer to that is that we have these gifts, they just stay locked up in a ball because we just don't want to go into it because it's messy and we don't want to do it. So how can you look at your story and see where are the gifts in your story? Where are the gifts in your adversity and your challenges?
Oh, I mean, in every way, like just, I think if I hadn't gone through the things that I've gone through in my life, then I wouldn't have had the tools. I wouldn't have learned the tools that I have now. So, like I could have coasted along the way I was living. And like, if I look back on my story and my life, I wouldn't change anything. Like, I wouldn't go back and say, like, I wish I wouldn't have, had a, been an alcoholic or had this drinking problem, because there's been so much that's come out of that. And I think the gifts are just being able to be myself and really getting to know who I am, to be compassionate for others, to not be so judgmental, and to not be so hard on myself or be so judgmental of others either. The ability to connect with people. Like the biggest gift itself is the ability to look at those struggles, because they still happen, right? Even when we have these tools, but the growing never stops.
No.
And there's always peeling back of the layers. And so the strength of being able to just realize that the gift is, you can look at a challenge and it can crush you, or it can be, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How is this going to make me stronger? Like there's always something good that's going to come out of it. Like we talked a little bit about a situation, like I still have things going on, right? And it's funny because I think the universe gives us these lessons which become gifts depending on how we handle it, right? So there are certain situations where I could look at, like, this is a devastating situation, but I can also look at the blessings that come out of it. And sometimes, whether it's something big or something small, all that's needed is a shift in perspective. Like, it can be, I've had days where I've had a horrible day on Monday and a great day on Tuesday because I've shifted my mindset. And I've thought, what's really different yesterday and today? Like, I still live in the same house. I have the same family. I have the same job. I have the same friends. Nothing has changed really drastically except for my perspective and my thoughts about the situation. Like, that's how powerful our minds are.
Oh, that is very powerful. And I'm so proud of you. Seriously, so proud of you. And I really hope that anyone listening will realize that that is what it comes down to, is how you choose to look at the situation and how you react because of your situation. And allowing yourself, it doesn't mean that we don't have bad days. Of course we do. We have bad days. As you said, we have some days where I think old mindset would be that, okay, Monday was terrible. The whole week is right off. I'll wait and start next week, because the whole week it's just a mess. And it's not. It's the fact that allowing yourself the grace to say that, you know what, this is just not my best day. It's just not. I say it, and I say it with my husband all the time, but not all the time. But when I have it, is that, you know what, it's an off day. It's just an off day. I'm not going to give it any more energy than that. I'm not going to label it. I'm not going to say I'm not good at this. It's just an off day. And tomorrow is a new day, and we're going to try this again. And so perspective is truly everything. And I think what you're doing there, and what you've learned and how you're putting that into practice, what a great skills to have when raising two young girls, right? It really, like, that's a great thing that you're going to be able to pass on and help to teach with them as well. So that's fantastic. Fantastic. Based on everything you've gone through and what you're doing now, what are you on a mission to do? Like, what do you see yourself continuing to do in the future?
I really want to help people who've been in similar situations as mine. I think, well, I talked to you about my body image issues and my eating disorder. And I think that whether someone's struggled with an eating disorder or not, a lot of us have struggled with our body image. And so when I came back into fitness after going through some recovery work and going back to work in an office, when I came back into fitness and being honest with myself, I had to be very careful about not being obsessing about exercise and eating. And so it's been on my mind for the last 3 years. And it's something that is in the development stages, that I want to create a program for people who have, struggled with body image, eating disorders, self-esteem, that we can do a program where there's movement and take the focus off. Like, this is not going to be a boot camp. This is not going to be a get your bikini body program. And those things, don't get me wrong, those things have their place in the world. But I want to help people who've been through what I've been through, because I thought, how am I going to ever enjoy exercise again without becoming obsessive about it and without beating myself up about my body or things like that. So I want to teach people how to use exercise for like just the happiness factor, feeling good, confidence, you release those endorphins. So it like a program where it's going to be a combination of exercise, yoga, and meditation. For women who have been through some similar struggles. So just learning how to love movement again and learning how to love ourselves and to connect with our bodies, which is why the yoga and the meditation piece is going to come into it, because like I'm always running away with my thoughts, thinking about the future, thinking about what I have to do tomorrow. And it's something that's going to bring your mind back to your body, to feel, to be in that moment and to be connected, and then to be connected with like-minded people who have had similar struggles. So it's not about like just fitness, but it'll be about like mind, body, and soul, about feeling good, about movement because it's good for you, because it feels good. And so that's my next big thing, and I'm really excited about that.
That is awesome. I can see you creating that and doing extremely well with that, because we can only teach on something that we've gone through.
Yeah.
So we can all, we go through these times where you want to be a life coach, you want to do this, you want to do that. You have to get super specific on what you have gone through and what lessons you've learned, because that's what you're here to teach. It's just really, that's what you're here to teach. And that's exactly what you're doing. So that is fantastic.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions at the end that I want to ask you.
Okay.
I want to make sure I cover this. Where can people find you?
Okay, so I have a Facebook page. It's Julie Laidlaw. I think you might have to type in Julie Laidlaw Fitness. And I have an Instagram account and a Twitter account, and they're both at Julie Laidlaw Fit. And my website is julielaidlaw.com. So pretty much you type in my name
and it pops up.
Find me.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome. So that is where people can connect and connect with you, and we'll continue to promote this and share this, and definitely, if you know of someone who has struggled, which of course we all have, this is definitely an area where Julie is, I have no doubt, going to be an amazing coach for people who are working through those challenges. So 2 questions that I want to ask you. If you could go back to your younger self, what message would you tell her?
I would tell my younger self that you are worthy and you are lovable and that you are good enough. Because I think my default was to always think that I was never good enough, and that I always had to be more and I had to be perfect. And you don't have to be perfect, and we never will be perfect. No. So I would tell myself to just, take it, like, not be so hard on myself. And I would say you're worthy and you're lovable, and you don't have to do anything differently to be worthy and lovable. You are that right now, as you are right now, because
That's beautiful. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm sure everyone can relate to that, because we all wish we could go back in time and tell ourselves a message that we learned today. So that one's beautiful. What is the last question that I want to ask you is what life lesson are you most grateful for?
What life lesson am I most grateful for? Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many that it could be.
And you could tell me a couple if you have a couple, but what pops into your mind first?
I would say that in getting sober, that one of the greatest lessons was to be able to be honest with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think for many years in numbing my pain, that I wasn't being honest with myself. And because of that, I was never free. And sometimes you have to face things that are so difficult. Like there was things that I thought I would never look at. Like I just couldn't even touch that. Like it was just so, like it was unthinkable to look at that stuff. But the best reward has been in being completely and utterly honest with myself and with others about like my story and what I've been through, and it's just that honesty piece. I think that's been the greatest life lesson for sure, because now I'm free to be who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how does that freedom is something that you just can't put a description on. I think I apologize. Like, I love quotes. I can't remember who said it, but we don't realize the weight of the burden or the freedom until we don't hold it anymore. And when we let go of it, it's like, oh my goodness, that was holding me down in every single aspect of my life. And I wasn't living.
Yes.
And everyone deserves to live. And I don't care what kind of mistakes people have made. People do deserve to feel that freedom. And that freedom that comes from being very honest and very real with your story and where you're at, and allowing yourself the space to move forward, create change, create a shift for yourself. And what it'll do is I just believe it'll create a beautiful ripple effect. It will in the world, and that it will allow people to step into their strength, their story, realize they're not alone. And the more we do that, the more of a shift we can create.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for being on today. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up, but I really appreciate you having me on. I've never done anything like this before, so it's so exciting. And I'm so grateful for you. And I remember when I first met you, I think even before I met you in person, I was like, there's a reason why Marsha has been placed in my life. And, I've learned a lot from you. And yeah, I'm just really grateful. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. And, I want to add one quick thing at the end. That was beautiful. Thank you. Is that we have to be willing to be open to realize who else is out there in the world. We have 7 billion people on the planet. And when there are moments when we feel the most alone, is usually because we're looking internally and we're looking at, just the group that we are surrounding ourselves with. And I was never going to get to this place if I didn't open myself up. And I didn't want to be in the other place anymore. It was just that simple. I did not want to. It was just not where I wanted to live and not how I wanted to live my life. And in doing so, it has opened up the doors. I have met some of the most amazing people like yourself. I remember sitting in chapters and discussing, and it was like, oh, yep, this was not an accident at all.
Yep.
Not at all. And that happens because we open ourselves up. So I would really encourage anyone who's listening today to realize that you're not alone. And by being vulnerable, being open, being honest, you really get connected with some incredible people. So I, like you, Julie, so I thank you so much for being on the call today. And this will be recorded, it will be uploaded, and I will share it, and we'll share it with you.
Okay.
And if you would like to connect with Julie, you will find her on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, her blog, and her website. So thank you so much for being here today, Julie. And I hope you have an awesome day today.
You too. Enjoy your long weekend. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.